All right, what's going on, Giants fans? Bobby Skinner making another Saturday video because the Giants had another Saturday signing, so they're keeping me busy on a Saturday, trying to go out. But Giants want to keep me busy. Anyways, the Giants signed center slash guard Joe Looney, and that name sounds familiar. Well, that's because he played for the Dallas Cowboys for the majority of his career. 6'3", 315 pounds, turns 31 at the end of August, so basically a month from now, and the Giants bring in depth, maybe starter level player in Joe Looney. I mean, he played 12 games for the Dallas Cowboys at center, starting at center last year. And supposedly they wanted him in 2020 free agency. You know, Dan Duggan and Jordan Renan both reported that they had made him an offer in free agency. And, you know, you go back to a year ago during free agency, you know, I was pushing for Nick Gates at center, but a lot of people weren't because he had never played center, you know, and we had no idea, like, were they going to run with Spencer Pulley, or was this idea that they actually might move Nick Gates real? So apparently they looked at options, and Joe Looney, they gave him an offer, and the Dallas Cowboys obviously must have matched or done that better. I wanted to do a film breakdown on him, but NFL Game Pass sucks. They took away all 22, and they said it's not coming back for months, which is just brutal. So go tweet at them to play in traffic. But anyways, Joe Looney, like I said, he's played the overwhelming majority of his snaps at center in his career, with 42 career starts in the NFL. So with Nick Gates, because he's played well at center, guard, and even tackle, there's always this question like, well, they add a center in Joe Looney, who's played almost all, you know, he started a lot more games at center than Nick Gates has. Do we slide Nick Gates back out to guard, where Nick Gates played good at guard and at 2019, you know, basically his first year in the NFL? But Joe Looney's coming off of a down year, and I'll read you some stats according to PFF. In 12 games at center in 2020, Joe Looney allowed 3 sacks, 3 QB hits, and 16 pressures. Nick Gates, in 16 games, so 4 more games, he had 0 sacks, so that's 3 less, 1 QB hit, 2 less, and 16 pressures, so the same amount, but 4 more games played. And also, only 2 pressures in the last 6 games of the year. So Nick Gates obviously got better as the season went along. So I would not be looking to move Nick Gates from center. Like, it would have to be a player in next year's draft who you liked a lot more than you did a 31-year-old Joe Looney. So I am very firm. Like, keep Nick Gates as center. I mean, you know, people make the point of Jason Garrett and, oh, you don't want to have Daniel Jones have a different offensive coordinator every year. Well, we don't want him to have a different center every year. He had John Halapio. Let him get good with Nick Gates. And Nick Gates was essentially the best offensive lineman on the team last year. He was more consistent than Kevin Zeitler was. Now, I would expect Andrew Thomas to be better than him this year, but nonetheless, he was a good player for them last year. And also, something I think we're forgetting was Shane Lemieux's injury. Jonathan Harrison, who was brought in to be the backup center, played for the Jets. He's on the PUP list still. Like, he's on the physically unable to perform list. So, I really do think this is a depth move, and it may, you know, be the end for Jonathan Harrison's short stint as a New York Giants. And Shane Lemieux going down, although, you know, reportedly he's only going to be out a couple weeks, and which would mean he's probably good for the regular season. I think it might have scared them a little bit. And also, think about this. And this was surprising to me, and they did it in the second practice after Shane Lemieux's injury too. Kenny Wiggins was filling in at left guard for the New York Giants. Not Zach Fulton, who they signed in free agency, who started a ton of games in his career but had a down year in 2020. I think this might say more about Zach Fulton than it does anybody. It didn't have to do with Shane Lemieux. Because, I mean, Kenny Wiggins, they brought him in last season, but nobody expected him to play over Zach Fulton. And with Lemieux being out some time, you would think they would have put Fulton in that role, but apparently they have Kenny Wiggins in there. So I really do think Joe Looney's brought in to be, you know, the backup center and swing guard. And maybe Fulton or Wiggins plays him over. Now, also, he does have guard experience. Some people have talked about him possibly playing over Shane Lemieux. I don't think that's the craziest thing in the world. Like, I could see that happening. Because Shane Lemieux, I mean, he was pretty bad in pass blocking in 2020 as a rookie. Was a good run blocker. But the Giants like Shane Lemieux, and he's young, and they just drafted him. So I don't see a world where they're going to just start Joe Looney over Shane Lemieux. And the only reason I could see that is if Shane Lemieux's coming back from his injury slow. And they're like, hey, we put him in. He's looked good in camp. So, you know, they say you can't lose your job to injury. Well, you sure can in today's NFL. So if Joe Looney comes into practice and he looks good and better than Shane Lemieux looked last year, then I could see that happening. But I just don't see Joe Looney coming off of a down year, just coming into camp with the team. I don't see him displacing Shane Lemieux unless the injury nags and is a little more serious than we originally thought. So, like I said, I think he's brought in to be the backup center, play swing guard. I don't know what happens with Fulton. I think Fulton's the biggest question mark now because again, I was pretty surprised that they put Kenny Wiggins at left guard over him 2 days in a row. And I know he's played the majority of his career at right guard, but still, Zach Fulton started games at center. He started games at left guard in the NFL. So it could say something about Zach Fulton. It's hard to say. We're not there in the building, not there at practice. But again, I think this Shane Lemieux injury might have scared the Giants a little bit, and they were supposed to bring in Austin Ryder for a visit. I don't know if that's still going to happen. I would assume that that's canceled now that they signed Joe Looney, but again, I don't want to assume anything. So, we'll see. Leave Nick Gates at center for 2021 and going forward, unless you find a center you really, truly fall in love with, and he's only a center prospect. So, yeah, bring in depth. Hey, at a position we are thin at, and when Shane Lemieux went down, we said it. We can't afford to have injuries here. Bring in a guy. I like the proactiveness from the Giants, even though it's a little reactive to the Shane Lemieux injury. But hopefully Shane Lemieux comes back healthy, gets better from his 2020 season. Rookies struggle. I remember we interviewed Rich Soybert, and he's like, I gave up like 2 sacks on back-to-back plays my rookie year, or, when I first started playing, and I struggled. So let Shane Lemieux, grow. I like Shane. I was pretty critical of his rookie season, but I do like Shane. So appreciate you guys. Like, subscribe to the video. Check out the podcast. If you want to see some film breakdowns, we have a Zach Fulton. I have a Shane Lemieux rookie, breakdown you can find on the channel. We have our player profile mini episodes, full podcast episode, reaction videos. So we got everything you need if you're a Giants fan. Appreciate you guys. See you on the next one. Enjoy your weekend, and let's go Big Blue.